Well, thank you very much, Oslo Freedom Forum, for inviting me here. I am a very ordinary lawyer from Pakistan, and I'm notorious or famous, not because I'm a lawyer, but many Pakistanis would think of me as anti-religious, anti-Pakistan, corrupting the mind of the youth, wanting women to be lewd, while others would consider me, perhaps, as a voice in the wilderness. I have learned through the years many lessons what activism must be all about. We realized very early on, as my friend from Saudi Arabia just now said, that we have to be as strategic as dictators. Activism must come with the heart, with integrity, but it must also come with the mind. We learned how to work in partnerships, not only by partnerships of those who are victimized, but partnerships of those who believe firmly and are firmly committed to the ideas of rule of law and democracy. Because in my mind, when we started the women's movement in Pakistan, though women were in the vanguard, but a large number of men also supported us. So for me, it is not a fight of women against men at one level, but it is a fight against a thinking. In Pakistan, we've had 40 years of dictatorship out of 60 years of age in our country. But unlike many of the countries that are now in transition, not one single dictator was given peace of mind from the first day that they took over power. So these are some of the bright signs of Pakistan, where there is a liberal civil society, where there are people who are progressive, where there are people who have been willing and continuously sacrifice their lives for a better Pakistan, for a better society. We have therefore learned to build on the positives. And I realized, like many of my friends, when we talk about mindsets, for example, we've heard these cliches so many times. Muslims can never stink. Muslims can never lie. Muslims have their own way of life. And one has been able to challenge this mindset. But this mindset is not something that you're born with. This is a mindset that is created. And it is created deliberately by those with vested interest who are greedy for power, and they are called dictators. Whether they are dictators in the name of Islam, or whether they are dictators in the name of stability, or whether they are dictators in the name of national security. And I believe that two of the worst things that are happening in the world today, the first is the priority given to national security. Today, every country, whether it's the West or the East, progressive or non-progressive, their policies are being led by the intelligence departments rather than by politicians themselves. And that's a great challenge for all of us activists, to ask, how is it that we have no leadership in the world? How is it that leadership is visionless in the world? And I ask this because though I have been an activist from the day I was born, because my father was in opposition and was in and out of jail, so I have learned the words fundamental rights and adult franchise before I knew my little poem in nursery school. But when I became a lawyer, that was the time that the most lethal dictator, Ziaul Haq, had taken over our country. He was patronized by the West because he was the leader of the so-called jihad industry, which now you are suffering also in the West, but we suffered it even before September 11th. For us, every single day was September 11th, ever since Ziaul Haq took office in Pakistan. For us, we had never seen public flogging before, and we saw it then. For us, we had never experienced laws which said that people should be stoned to death and their hands should be amputated. But we did see it with Ziaul Haq. And we had all the Western leadership backing this great jihadist to the cost of the people and the women of Pakistan. And I recall that at that time, we were frustrated young women because we saw these laws coming where a woman who was raped could be charged of extramarital sex, where a blind girl was accused of extramarital sex, given punishment, where a young woman was flogged publicly in Karachi, and we seethed and we said, over our dead bodies, will our daughters go through this? So there were 150 of us who decided to demonstrate against Ziaul Haq's Islamization. There had been demonstrations earlier, but political one, who should come to power and who should not come to power. But nobody challenged Islamization of Ziaul Haq. My father was alive at that time, and when I said we are going tomorrow for a demonstration, he knew what we were up against. And he said, oh my God, really? But he moved behind the scenes to make sure that we would get international attention if something happened to us. And true enough, we were beaten badly, slapped around, picked up, thrown in the police van. And the more repression that was on us, the more our resolve. And we went into the police station and we said, we are not getting out of this police station till the Interior Ministry does not publicly apologize to us, and we want to hear it on radio. Because we will not allow one dictator to ruin a whole generation of our women. And I believe, I've worked with women for years and decades in my country. I believe that women in my country are the hidden pearl. They have so much courage. They tell you off, even as a lawyer. I remember a woman coming with 5 or 6 kids, and I said, you really want a divorce? What are you going to do with these kids? You really want it? And she looked at me and she said, I've been sitting outside, hearing all the training programs that your office is giving of women who were killed in violence during marriage. Give me one example where a woman has died because she was divorced. And I couldn't. I mean, these are the voices of wisdom that you get. For example, I've had bonded labor telling me, when I've said to them, do you really want to be free? You won't get a job. And they've said, if it was only for food, I could go in the prison. But what I want is my dignity. So I believe that these are fundamental values. I know that I'm running out of time, but I want to briefly just say to you that there are cases I've done of an 11-year-old boy who was accused of blasphemy, given death sentence. I knew I was going to take a risk by fighting his case. But these are calculated risks that every activist must take. On appeal, the judge who acquitted him was killed. I was attacked several times. I still have close security in my country. But that child was saved. Similarly, I had another client who is now in asylum or now living here in Norway, a young girl who married because she wanted to get married to someone without the permission of her father. And that was a crime. But just to wrap up, very briefly, is to give some of my experiences for transition to democracy. Transition to democracy is a very challenging time. It is hard. We get frustrated because the remnants of dictatorship are still there. The old mindset is still there. And the new people that come in are either the creation of the old one or they are unskilled. But I believe that when there is less democracy, you need more democracy. One word of caution against those who may have some notion that, well, if people who are Islamists come through democracy, finally we will let them go. Finally people will change the rulers. But let me give you one example and one thing that I read somewhere during the transition in Algeria. The Islamists use the ladder of democracy to reach at the top, and once they've done it, they kick it off. So therefore, it is very important that you make sure that when they are there, they do not sow the seeds in your constitution and your laws so that you have to suffer another 3 decades to get rid of them. Because you cannot be an intolerant person on religion and yet be a Democrat. And therefore, I agree with my friend who came earlier talking about self-censorship. I think there is self-censorship. I know that I worked in the UN as a UN rapporteur on freedom of religion or belief. And every Western country's government is so afraid of what is going to happen. They are so politically correct. But let there be a war of words rather than be fear for everyone. Thank you very much.